Good day, everyone. It's a brand new day and a brand new chance to learn. I am John J. Cejudo, your discussant, and I welcome you all to our educational philosophy class. For this video, I'm going to talk about one of the oldest pedagogical techniques used in the classroom, and that is the Socratic method, which was derived from the Greek philosopher Socrates. Before we proceed, let us first decipher our learning objectives. Upon the completion of this lesson, everyone will be able to recognize the proponent of the Socratic method, define the Socratic method, illustrate a Socratic scenario, describe the roles of Socratic teachers and students, and identify the advantages and the disadvantages of the Socratic method. So those are our learning objectives. I hope that we're going to achieve all of them by the end of this session. At this point in time, let us all meet the proponent of this pedagogical technique. Socrates was a Greek philosopher from Athens who is credited as one of the founders of Western philosophy and as being the first moral philosopher of the Western ethical tradition of thought. Socrates is arguably the most influential philosopher of all time. His ideas not only changed the course of history, but also laid the groundwork for what is today considered Western philosophy. So who was Socrates? He spent nearly his life in Athens, Greece. He was a soldier, then a stone cutter, before devoting his life to being a philosopher, which literally means a lover of wisdom. But little else is known about Socrates' upbringing or the rest of his life because he didn't actually write anything down. In fact, everything we know about him is through the writings of his contemporaries, most famously his student Plato. In one of Plato's writings, he actually stated there that Socrates had plenty of ideas, but he didn't claim to definitely know anything. In fact, he famously said that true knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing. In an attempt to uproot ignorance, which he saw as a danger to society, Socrates acted as Athens' gadfly. That is, he went around the city pressing wise people on their beliefs, asking them series of questions, and ultimately exposing that they know nothing. This process of gradual questioning, more commonly known the Socratic method, is perhaps Socrates' greatest contribution to the academic world. Form of critical discussion in English and law classes, and its influence led to the invention of the scientific method, which is similarly based on challenging hypotheses in an attempt to question their validity. In 399 BC, Socrates was charged with not believing in the Athenian gods and using his ideas to corrupt the youth, and was sentenced to death by a poison. Going back to what I mentioned earlier about how Socrates' life was accounted, historians have struggled to come to a consensus even on his most fundamental teachings and biographical events. Plato's dialogues are the most comprehensive account of Socrates' beliefs. However, some scholars suspect them to be Plato's own ideas relayed through his teacher. To this day, it's still unclear whether we really know anything about Socrates at all. At this juncture, let us define the Socratic method. Socratic method is a shared dialogue between the teacher and the student where both of them are responsible for continuing the dialogue through questioning. It is a pedagogical technique in which a teacher does not give information directly but instead asks a series of questions with the result that the student comes either to a desired knowledge by answering the questions or to a deeper awareness of the limits of knowledge. It also encourages the people to question what they were told and to go beyond the obvious. Here is an example scenario. The teacher and the students are watching a documentary of Sandra Aguinaldo about the difficulty of traversing the rocky shoals and the raging river students are facing every time they come to school. I hope class you're able to understand the documentary. So let me ask one of you there. Okay, you Matthew, what have you learned from the documentary? Sir, I learned about what these children are going through every time they come to school, and I would like to share this knowledge to other people, especially those who do not have the same journey as they. You made mention of this word knowledge. What do we mean by that? What is this thing about knowledge that you want to impart? For me, sir, knowledge is love for what it is to be a human. Aha, knowledge is love. Well, alright. So if you wanted to, let's say, if you wanted to have an operation for an eye cataract, would you go to a woman who is full of love and know nothing about surgery? Of course, no, sir. Therefore, I would say that the definition of knowledge about love is not good enough to be its concrete definition. So let's try again and put this in this way. We know you, Matthew, as a public speaker. Definitely, you obtained the art of speech delivery from your former speech teacher and also from experience. Your knowledge of the art of speech delivery made you a great speaker. Now, is there a different point of view with regard to your knowledge of the art of speech delivery and also from the knowledge that you got from that documentary? What assumptions are we making here that would help you arrive at a definite meaning of knowledge? Aha! I have just understood you, sir. Knowledge is anything that a person acquires or gains from experience or education. Could you explain that point further? I learned it from the documentary that these children need to go or traverse the rocky shoals and the raging river just to come to school. And I also learned the art of speech delivery from my former speech teacher. And for me, going back to all of these experiences, I could say that knowledge is any information or skill that a person acquires or gains from experience and also from education. Wow! Finally! You got it, Matthew! As what we could see in the given scenario, the teacher asked the student a question from the material. Then, he probed his answer by making sure that he knew every word he uttered. He did not directly give the answer because he wanted the student to think logically. So he asked the student a series of questions to stimulate critical thinking and draw out ideas and help him arrive at a definite answer. That is the goal of the Socratic method. This time, we're going to use the given scenario to determine the basis for the roles of the teacher and the student in the Socratic classroom. The roles of the Socratic teacher. He is a facilitator. The teacher is a model of critical thinking who poses questions, respects students' viewpoints, probes their understanding, and shows genuine interest in their thinking. It is also rational that a teacher should think of thought-stimulating types of questions to better steer the critical thinking skills of the students. Furthermore, we teachers should remind ourselves that thinking begins with some contents only when questions are generated by both teachers and students. Remember, if we want to engage our students in thinking through our contents, we must stimulate their thinking through questions that lead them to further questions. Second, he creates and sustains an intellectually stimulating classroom environment and acknowledges the value of every student in that environment. For this mere reason, students' answers are highly accepted, but it is made sure that they are subject to scrutiny. The teacher also motivates the students to give his thoughts without reservations. With that being said, the student will be able to participate confidently in the conversation. The roles of the Socratic student. First, he participates when called upon. Just like in the given scenario, when the teacher called one of the students, he unreluctantly stood up and responded to the teacher's questions. The students' active participation will be a great help to achieve the goal of the Socratic method. Second, he answers questions as carefully and clearly as possible. A few of the students typically have no intellectual answers. They tend to just say what they know without being aware of its accuracy. That demonstrates that most of the time they are not thinking through the content that they are presumed to be learning. For the students, the best way to come up with a concrete and reasonable answer is that give yourself sufficient time to decipher the question, gather data if possible, and arrive at a definite answer. Let us now proceed to our last objective, which is to identify the advantages and the disadvantages of the Socratic method. Let's begin with its advantages. First, it fosters critical thought above memorization. I observed that the Socratic method of teaching is an effective way to promote critical thinking skills since it aims to elicit student responses through a series of probing questions which encourage them to think logically before offering their answers. Second, it enforces the beliefs of the students as ideas are subject to examination. Socratic discussion gives the students the opportunity to develop and test their ideas, the beliefs they have spontaneously formed, and those they learn in school. Moreover, it is also imperative that their claims are needed to be examined for them to be valid. Third, it teaches to question, understand, and extend the claim. Thinking is driven by questions. It is through thinking that one understands the principles of extending claims. Remember, the more they are asked, the more they would get a chance to develop their understanding and expound their claims. Let us now proceed to its disadvantages. First, it results in easy failure rate without student participation. Socratic method should be participated by a teacher, a student, or by another student. If a student fails to participate, the goal of the Socratic method will not be attained. Such absence of student participation is the result of fear of speaking, having no idea to speak about, or just his inability to speak up. Second, it is not suited for imparting worldly facts and standard lecture. The most classic form of Socratic method uses creative questions to take apart or ignore current ideas. This allows the students to think about important concepts in a new light. This method is ideal for questions of a philosophical nature like what is beauty or what is life. However, this method may not be right for concepts that have clear subjective disciplines like philosophy, art, humanities, or even the ethics of science. But it may not be the best teaching method for objective disciplines like mathematics, English, or even science. Third, it leaves intimidation and discomfort. This is definitely observed when the student does not know how to answer the question, does not know anything about the topic, lacks the courage to recite, or is uncomfortable in the use of the language. Such manifestations will leave the student intimidation and discomfort. On the other hand, if the teacher were unable to use the language, were uncomfortable using the language, were unfamiliar about the art of questioning, he would definitely be victimized by intimidation and discomfort too. So it's very important, or it's very imperative that the ones involved in the Socratic scenario or Socratic classroom will be able to use the language, know the art of questioning, and at the same time know something about the topic. In that way, they will be able to converse in a Socratic classroom. And that's it for today, everyone. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you learned many things about Socrates and the Socratic method. So please don't forget to like, share, and click the notification bell for you to be updated on my next video. Once again, this is Sir Geo saying every day is a brand new day to learn. Goodbye!